Okay, gang, here we go again. Director's commentary, and this time it's been the much asked for commentary on the episode I did that we called the fan episode. And this is where we had a bit of a contest, which I will talk to in a bit, to see if there's a fan that wanted to come out and do survival with me. And we ended up with this gentleman, Joe McConnell. Let's just get right into it, and then I'll be interrupting all along the way to give you this behind-the-scenes commentary. If you want to just see this on its own, go to the playlist, and you can find the video. Just look for a probably fan episode, and watch it without me interrupting. So, let's get started. Survival is not easy, and it's not what gets paraded across TV screens. What I set out to do with Survivorman was to teach survival skills. Skills that would help to keep you alive in a horrible ordeal. But it's never stopped there. Because the intrigue has been enough to not only start an entire TV phenomenon, but to also cause those curious enough about their own abilities to want to try it out for themselves. Well, TV is one thing. Survival is another. And if someone is going to attempt to learn survival skills under my watch, they're going to have to do it for real. Just them, me, and the wilderness. All right, here we go. And so what we did was, we held this kind of contest. And I want to get into the parameters of how I made my decision on going with Joe McConnell, because there was criticism of it and after the fact. And but I had my reasons, and they were solid. And true to form, they definitely worked out for the way we needed to do things. Joe was fantastic, and we ended up with this excellent episode out of it. I'll get into that in just a minute. You know, from the very first days of Survivorman, I've been asked by the viewers, all of you, to bring someone out with me. Over 200 of you submitted videos to a contest where one lucky viewer, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, would win a chance to come out here and survive with me. Joe McConnell won the day.
My name's Joe McConnell from New York, and I've never done survival stuff. I've camped, but the most that I've been without resources is really 24 hours.
I'll hike him far into the bush, away from roads, where he can experience some of my kind of survival.
I'm open for the mystery of it all, learning as much as I can from Les and learning about how the show is made, stuff that I can use in the future when I go on trips.
Now, I happen to know that Joe's an independent filmmaker, and that part of my job has him excited. But what he's forgetting is that out here, it's still survival. And no matter what he or any other viewer of Survivorman thinks, it's not as easy as it looks. So, let's go there. So, even Joe was expecting it to be a certain way when he showed up. You know, ever since I started Survivorman, I even had a staff member, Andy Peterson, awesome individual. He's actually a fireman now. And he had a wonderful creative eye. And I had him running camera. He came on as an intern. I had him running camera for me. And I remember him saying, because he was a big fan of the show before I hired him or brought him on as an intern, that he wanted to see whether or not the whole thing was faked or not. Like, he just wasn't quite sure. I think Max Atwood might have been the same. That always gives me a chance to kind of laugh a bit. It's like, okay, you'll see. And so it was no different with this fan contest. Joe wanted to see, you know. And so why did I pick somebody with very little to zero survival skills? That was the criticism. Like, oh, you picked a guy who didn't know what he was doing. Because that was the point. You know, one of the points of Survivorman all along was to teach. It was to put myself in the position of someone who didn't know what to do or has done the wrong thing, mostly, and has to find their way out of it. I didn't want somebody who was another me. I didn't want some guy coming here who knew his way around a firebow and shelters and flint strikers and all the rest of it. And because that might end up being kind of boring. When two survival guys out there who know what they're doing, it almost ends up being like camping. Don't get me started on a lot of these other shows and how easy it can be out there when things are done right or you have certain things. So what I truly needed, somebody who could operate a camera. You see, I could have chosen so many people who didn't know anything about survival or people who were really good at survival and everything in between, but if they had zero experience on how to operate a camera, here's the problem. I would have ended up with terrible footage. That's why people go on Alone or whatever. They go through all kinds of training to how to film themselves. In fact, and this is a true story, the head instructor for Alone told me that, don't know if they still do it, but they used to spend a week at boot camp, and during that week, they watched every episode of Survivorman. And a lot of that was the survival stuff, but I'll bet a huge portion of it was the camera skills and how you shoot something. So I wanted somebody that I didn't have to teach how to run a camera or how to film. And Joe had those skills. The survival stuff, I don't care. I don't care what he knows. Better if he knows nothing, because then he's going to really be in it. And that's why I went down that road. Sure, there's a lot of guys that, I should have been doing that. I should have been out there with you. I was like, yeah, but you already know what you're doing. That's not what this show is about. Never has been. This is about disseminating wonderful information. It's about teaching. It's about facilitating through a skill set that enables you to feel comfortable in the wilderness. That's what it was always about. That's why I chose Joe McConnell, because he was already a decent filmmaker, and that's what I needed. More than anybody with survival skills, I needed somebody who could capture a good story while we're out there and under great stress, the stress of surviving. Joe's got a backpack full of gear, but I want to throw him off his game immediately. So I've laid out a table of survival items. What he doesn't know is that after I challenge him to show me the top 2 priority items he would take for survival, those 2 things are all I'm going to let him take into the bush. Period. All right, so we have essentially a plethora of survival gear. Slingshot, snare wire, fire starter, water filtration, rope, rain poncho. You've got a survival kit. I've put in a whole assortment of knives, matches, some bit of food, a pair of gloves even, that sort of thing. Realistically, if you and I knew that we were going off into these woods, operating with the knowledge that anything can happen, what I'd like you to do is look over my stuff and your stuff, and to start with, just to start with the process, I'd like you to pick out what you think are the 2 most important items on this table. Now, right now, I'm gaming him, totally, because I said, start with that. I said, to start with, as if there's going to be something more. Oh, no, I'm gaming him. I want him to think, oh, well, there's going to be more that I can pick. And he did say to us all, because at this point the crew's there filming us, that he thought, oh yeah, we'll be out there filming this thing, and the crew will be around, and so on and so forth. He really had no idea what he was in for. And so with this, I love doing this little thing. I did it with, if you go and watch Fighting to Survive on this YouTube channel, where I take out an MMA fighter to survive, rest in peace. The gentleman has passed away, but if I take him out to survive, and I did the same thing, and I used to do it with students. I love laying out all this juicy stuff there, and then say, so what's your top thing you would pick? Almost always somebody takes the biggest knife. It's the stupidest choice ever for the first choice. Some of you are going, what are you talking about? That's exactly, no. The top choice is a way to get a fire going. In my opinion, it will always be a surefire, pardoning the pun, way of getting a fire going. That's going to be my top choice, always. But let's see what Joe picks. Just to start with the process, I'd like you to pick out what you think are the 2 most important items on this table that should go with you for sure, in priority, number 1 and number 2.
Oh, jeez. First, I'd probably take the water bottle.
Okay.
Because it has a filter in there. Mm-hmm. Number 2, assuming one of us has a multi-tool, I'd say like the hatchet, chopping wood. Okay. And so are you settled? So you see, right now he's already saying, assuming, will one of us have a multi-tool? He's also relying on, and this is a very dangerous thing to do, and I find that that people do it when they go out with a guide. He's relying on his guide. Me, I'm going out with Survivorman. I'll be looked after. I'll be taken care of. Nuh-uh, that's not going to be the thing here. And by the way, tangent, that's how so many issues happen. Yossi Ginsburg in the jungle being lost for all those days, whatever it was, 19 or something, is trusting your guide. Look, what I like to say is, if you're going on an outdoor adventure, and I used to guide for several companies, and I'm actually going out this coming summer with my old, how would you say it, my old alma mater? Company I used to work for anyway. Love them, and I'm going to go out with them on a trip down the Nahanni River with Blackfeather Wilderness Adventures. Amazing guides, top level. And you want to be with top level guides when you go out on a wilderness adventure. Nonetheless, no matter who they are, however good they are, I always say, still, trust your guide, trust them. Hopefully they're good human beings, but don't rely on them. Never, ever rely on your guide. Rely on yourself
Well, right here, Joe is not only relying, he's counting on me to win the day for him. Ain't gonna happen.
You would go with the water bottle and the hatchet.
I think so, yeah.
But from here forward, put those with your pack. That's all you got. That's it.
Okay.
That's what you're going out with, are those 2 items. I can't have you out there camping. Deal?
Deal.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Joe makes his first mistake. He assumed that I would have a multi-tool and even that we would stick together. He has more surprises coming to him. Real survival is usually a surprise. It's difficult to prepare for, and I need Joe unprepared if he's to actually experience true survival.
So that's the big thing. When you're a teacher and you're teaching survival, throwing that curveball, it's important because curveballs come at you all the time in a real survival situation. And so when I'm being the teacher, the instructor, the guide, I'm going to facilitate that. I'm going to see what curveballs I can throw at this guy. And yeah, Joe wasn't ready for any of these. Great guy. Joe is a great guy. He took it all in stride, as you will see. And he was a good filmmaker, which helped so much.
As the crew take the last shots with the drone, the team hangs back, and Joe and I continue into the bush together, but alone.
And once again, that's the recognition for you, the viewer, that yes, the crew is not coming with us. We're going out there alone. But they were there for the initial shots. Right to the end, I always had to still say it so that people at home were going, oh yeah, well, there's a crew. Look, you can see them moving around the shots. Yes, in the first 3 minutes you can, because they were there for the intro. But they always left. I don't know if we said where we were here, but I can tell you now, it's Temagami, Ontario. Spectacular. I have a cabin up there, and I've canoed it and hiked it forwards and backwards and left to the left and to the right, all of them. It's just a stunningly beautiful place to go. You're into canoe tripping? Temagami is as beautiful or more beautiful than Algonquin Park without the people.
I'm going to leave all of the nights and where we stop and what happens to the unknown. So I'm not going to answer any questions on, even if I have a plan in my head. So you can trust me. But whatever you do, don't rely on me. That's the strongest thing I could say to you while we're out here.
It's a good instructor right there.
Do not rely on me. Trust me is fine. Rely on yourself from the next step you take forward. Everything is about yourself and surviving out here. A heart attack, break an ankle, anything could happen and I'm left. Now I have to rely on you.
Yeah.
I don't want you as a liability. I want you as an asset. If you rely only on me, you're a liability. So next step you take, this is yours now, okay? And you've got this. Both Joe and I are walking on an old established trail.
By the way, that's something I love to teach when it comes to search and rescue. And I implore everybody, that anybody who's keen on wilderness and that, volunteer for search and rescue in your area. It is the most rewarding, incredible experience. So I'm a volunteer. When I go down to the States, I'm a volunteer down in Southern Oregon, in Jackson County, Oregon, and just love it. But I always like to teach, when you're on a mission, searching for somebody, make sure you are an asset, not a liability. Always be an asset when you're out in nature, out in the wilderness.
Much deeper, much farther into the woods, this will run out on us. And that's...
I think it's April. I think that's the time of year here.
That's when things change somewhat, and not usually for the better. So the decisions are about to become yours. When we stop, where we stop, how we stop, I want to leave those up to you. I'm just going to follow suit. And I'm going to not even comment on the decisions you make, okay?
Okay.
So, take the lead. He told me he was really nervous at that moment when I said, take the lead. You start walking in front of me now. And he's going to commit some classic mistakes. Nothing against Joe. Everybody makes the same mistakes when you're not experienced in survival. And we'll get to those.
I don't want to tag along. I don't want to look after anyone. That would make it easy for Joe. So I've given him the responsibility of not only looking after himself, but also making our first major decisions with no input from me. Some of his choices could be exactly what I would never do, but it's the only way he'll learn the truths about survival.
I got some anxiety, but I'm trying to keep calm. I don't really know what the best place to sleep would be. I would be okay sleeping next to a tree. Then again, I don't know how cold it's...
So he says, oh, I'd be fine by a tree. Do you know that sitting by a tree all night is the most miserable experience of all. Often when I'm teaching classes of survival, and no, I don't do that anymore, but when I did, on occasion I still do, I suppose, I love it if the first night, if they can just sit by a tree, and then they discover really quickly just how miserable that experience is. You want to try it out? Do it in your backyard. Go and sit by a tree all night. It's awful. It's awful. And so the importance on having a bed, having a shelter, having a roof over your head, a waterproof roof over your head, you get that after one night of sitting by a tree.
Gonna get.
What I really want to do is let Joe make his own mistakes. I think he'll do fine. He's calm, and that's number one thing for survival. Remain calm. There's going to be some tough challenges for him, especially at night.
So purposely what I did on a number of occasions there, you could see there was distance between us. I said, you go on up ahead of me. I'm going to talk to the camera a little bit. I would say that to him. I'm just going to talk to the camera a little bit, and I don't want you to hear what I'm saying. So I'm going to drop back, and I would drop back 100 yards or so and then just do these little throws to camera. So it's just a way of keeping the story going, talking to you, the viewer, without having him hear what I'm saying and say, oh, that's what you're going to do?
This wouldn't be a horrible spot. I mean, it seems dry. There's a lot of trees. There's probably firewood.
This is your choice?
I think so, yeah.
Here's the catch.
Yeah.
You can stay here alone.
Okay.
So you stay here alone. I'm going to find a spot for me.
Okay.
The only equality I'm going to give you on my scenario is if you don't get a fire going, I won't get a fire going. Okay? So even if I can, I won't. I'm going to be far enough away so that you definitely feel alone tonight. Okay? Good?
I'm good, yeah.
I am going to look for a place to survive as well. I think I'll probably go uphill a little bit, okay?
All right.
All right.
Cool.
I'll come back and check on you.
See you soon.
You could feel the trepidation there with him when I did lay that on him. And I watch this sometimes and I realize I miss taking students out and teaching people right out there. I mean, Survivorman came out of that. It's like it's one thing to teach it in a classroom, but that's everything to be out there and to work on these skills. And so again, throwing him off his balance, and it's like, guess what? And so that was the way I played him on this one. It was just like, okay, fine. You tell me when you think. Now this was, by the way, this was many hours later of hiking. You tell me when you think when and where we should stop. And if I remember correctly, he waited way too long. Like he should have stopped well before this. Then I throw this curveball at him, and then I'm not going that far away. I'm probably going to be 150, 200 yards away, but that's enough. In the middle of the night and in the forest, someone's 100 or 150 yards away. That's enough to feel like they're not there.
I can tell he wasn't ready for this, to be left alone. And he's made his next mistake. He's picked a location low in elevation where all the cool air will settle on him through the night. I'm headed up to where it could be as much as 10 degrees warmer. But I refuse to lead him by the hand. He's got to learn things on his own.
And no, I'm not being a masochist here. This is just teaching survival training. And if I lead him by the hand and I do everything for him, what's the point?
In a remote wilderness location, I've taken Joe McConnell out for a taste of survival. Survivorman style. Complete immersion. No safety net.
And this is the only way to do it. Because even if I was 50 feet away in a situation like this, you feel alone. Tucked down in behind me here, there's a little spot, big pine tree, that I can kind of sleep under. And at least that gives me something to sit up against at night. What I very much want is to be out of the wind, and this will definitely be a spot out of the wind. I'm gonna tuck in there.
A big one, by the way. You know, I love it. I'll go on a hike with people or something. We have this wonderful hike that we do at the Eco Harmony Lodge in Ontario. I perform there in this big yurt. It's just a fun night. I play music, and then the next day we go off on a hike, and I'll ask people, you know, where they think they should stay, what do they think about drinking this water or that sort of thing. And I always point out that wind. Are you in the wind or not? And of course the wind can turn around, it can fool you, but you do as best as you can to stay out of the wind for your survival location. Remember that always.
I'm doing it again. I have to listen to the wise words of Les Stroud. You sweat, you die.
One of the things I'm doing is constantly breaking these branches with my hands instead of using my knife, simply because this time of year in the spring, it's just easier to do it. So save my knife, keep it sharp, and just use my hands when I can. So I don't know if he's gonna get a fire going, and I already promised that if he doesn't, I won't. So I at least want to be up off the ground and stay warm. I hate leaving him to not do well if he doesn't do well. But it's the best way to learn.
Joe makes another mistake, and one that can cost him dearly. He's not familiar with using a flint striker, so instead of using the axe blade, he hits it with a rock.
The flint stick broke.
Which is simply falling prey to a cliche. Well, you use a rock, right? Isn't that what you do? And you hit rocks together, and then Les says this is a flint stick, so I'll use a rock. It's not bad on Joe at all. It's just a cliche that people just sort of think if they haven't been taught. Yeah, he goes and breaks it.
See if I can improvise with it now.
The natural beauty of a North American forest can hide the truth of how difficult it can be to survive within one.
A lot of time left here before the sun goes down. But one thing I wanted to try out, doing a little bit of a test this time on survival gear. It's a chainsaw blade.
Yeah, remember when I used to do that? I used to always, I didn't always do it, but I loved trying a new piece of survival gear that you'd buy off the shelf on all these Survivorman episodes. And you can watch different ones. I was like, oh, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. And I think I will probably point out that this is a good saw, if I remember correctly, the only kind of handheld, chainsaw that you do with your hands that I've ever felt was decent ever was this one. All of those little ones with the little finger rings, throw them in the garbage. Useless. Never count on them for survival. But the one that's like a chainsaw blade with the black straps and you use your hands to, not bad. Not great, but not bad.
Not so bad. That worked. If I need to cut some bigger branches, I'll try this saw again. Hope he's not too bummed out about being alone. Unfortunately, being alone is part of survival. One thing that Joe did do was he thought that we were only a half an hour away from sunsetting. So he thought maybe he should be looking for a place to sleep. Never wait till a half an hour before sunset to find that place that you've got to spend the night. For me, I like to have at least an hour and a half of time if I know I've got to do something like this. Over the many years of surviving out in places like this, what I've been doing is often just wearing a raincoat. Raincoat and rain pants is usually what I have with me. Not since survival school, when I was training in survival, have I come out and instead of wearing a rain jacket, wear a simple rain poncho. They make great roofs. So, a little blast from the past with this.
Yeah, that's just me totally geeking out on survival stuff. Is because I know like the rain ponchos. When I first learned, you all wore the rain ponchos because they double as a roof beautifully when you're making a shelter. That is the advantage, and the best of all are the heavy ones, the army ones, the army ones that are kind of heavy. It took me a while actually. I don't know what happened to the one I had when I was a student. I lost it, but I eventually found one just like it in a store, and I bought it right away. It's like $4 or something, because they're hard to find now. But those heavy military rain ponchos, they're fantastic. Yep, they're heavy, but they are fantastic to use as like a bedroll to keep your stuff in, and then to use as a roof when you're building a shelter.
This rain poncho, and I think that's going to work out pretty cool. And I've got a belt knife on me, and my own design survival kit. I actually haven't had a chance to test it out in a situation like this, in actual survival. So now's the time. I'm a little worried about the sun going down here right now. I just want to get set up for the night. So instead of going through what I have in my survival kit now, I'll do that tomorrow. For tonight, I just want this little bit of rope that's in here.
I guess I forget how much I've done this, how familiar I am with the pitfalls or benefits of certain actions taken in the bush. I take for granted skills that over many years have simply become a part of me. Observing Joe is reminding me of how uncomfortable or even miserable survival can truly be.
I'm not hearing a lot of cracking or breaking of branches, so I'm assuming he's pretty settled. But I don't smell any wood smoke either. How are we doing here?
Now, like any good survival instructor, I do spend my time very worried for students. Always worried. I'm always worried. When I take people out, I was like, oh, I hope they're okay. I hope they're, you know. And so, it's just prudent to go in and do a check on them, which I will do. If I took you out for, a weekend sort of thing, and then you're alone and you're building a shelter, or even if you're in a group of 2 or 3, I'll still come and check on you at 3:00 a.m. just to make sure no one's, succumbing to hypothermia or something like that. So, time to come and check on Joe.
To get this fire going, as you can see. Boom.
Ooh, that's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah, all flint strikers, especially when they're the tube type, the pressure on them is important because if you press down on them, you snap them like a wood dowling. Yeah. That's one of the thickest strikers you can get. A lot of them are much thinner and smaller, so it comes down to going with the slide. Making sure you get the slide right, sort of thing.
I was kind of bashing it. What is the best rock to use the flint against? Or what should I use the flint against?
The blade of the axe.
The blade of the...
Yeah, that was my moment where I realized, oh no, he's been using a rock this whole time. Blade of the axe.
The axe. Would make sense.
Yeah. But for now, I'll leave you to the night.
All right.
You got that one bit of knowledge about using the axe instead of a rock. All right, Joe. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side of darkness. First zone, myself. I kind of know what I'm carrying with me. Second zone was when I actually ended up making a shelter move. I decided to change and put my shelter somewhere else because my second zone of assessment, the immediate area, showed me a better place to be. This is the third zone of assessment, further and farther beyond. For this area, this is the low spot, which means the cold will drop down into here and settle here. If I were to have a shelter right here, although it's nice and open, it could be as much as 10 degrees colder than up there.
This is the elevation that Joe is at. It's doing these zones of assessment that gives me the information I need to make the right decisions.
Calms the mind when you know what's around you for a bit of an extended distance. He feels fine right now because he's busy, he's active. The minute he stops, the minute both of us stop, cool right down. Our body temperatures will start to calm and cool right down. And that's dangerous.
I really should have done more of these because I actually really kind of enjoy them quite a bit. And it's company for me.
Joe's he's nowhere near as far along as I was hoping he was going to be. He's got nothing to sleep on the ground. Clothing that's going to keep him a bit warm until we get into the middle of the night. He broke the striker because he was using a rock instead of the hatchet to get the spark. And although now I've told him what to do, how to get a better spark with that little tiny bit he's got left, he's using tinder that isn't really going to catch a spark very well.
And I felt bad, but again, I needed him to go through this. Again, teaching him, I would have just made it easy for him if I taught him everything and how to do it every step of the way. And frankly, there would be no story then. So, but it was hard to watch Joe make some classic mistakes. Again, I would remind you that everybody makes these classic mistakes.
Gonna have a tough night, maybe even a miserable night. Try this again tomorrow night and I'll give him some tips. And you kind of have to go through a night like that to understand why you want to take care and make sure you're covered the next time you have to spend a night out in the wilderness alone.
Well, I'm getting a lot more sparks now that Les told me to use a blade. I'm gonna keep trying. I finally got a fire going, but I'm exhausted. That's not easy at all.
Well, my young apprentice got his fire going. And he's got something to be very proud of, because that couldn't have been easy. But that means I can do the same. It's great because I know that inside that survival kit, there should be some matches.
Yeah, which makes it easy for me. I was more relieved from me than for him. Like, okay, well, you know, hey, if he's got to go through the night without a fire, that's the deal, man. And so when he got it, my first thought was, oh, thank goodness, now I can make a fire, sort of thing. So it was great.
Moon's starting to come out. It's incredible, actually, how bright it is. Sometimes that can make you feel more comfortable because you can see a bit. Sometimes it freaks you out because you can see a bit.
Nothing compares to surviving the darkness and the cold. Survival comes down to 3 a.m. Survive is a verb.
I mean, it really is the true essence of the word survival. You've got to survive this properly. Joe and I have a long day tomorrow. Longer than he can expect.
I'm not sure what time it is, but all of a sudden it got freezing. Like the cold just rolled in. And the mosquitoes all night. Buzzing around constantly. Just hoping and praying that the sun comes up soon.
It must have been May for the mosquitoes to be there.
Even after wrapping myself in, actually there's one of those emergency, they call them space blankets inside the survival kit. So I took it, wrapped it around me, wrapped my rain poncho around me, and the fire died. I fell asleep, and still, all wrapped up this way, I still woke up with a horrible chill right down my spine, just that, oh, and I had to get up and stoke the fire. You don't sleep much in a survival situation. So I hope Joe is doing actually better than I am. Oh.
That's the thing, you know, when you get that night chill in a survival situation, I'd say probably the most awful, demoralizing one that I ever felt was the Rocky Mountain episode that I did, and I was sleeping under a rock on rocks. It was to wake up, oh God, the chill. And what happens is, I mean, you're instantly reduced to being a small child, and it like brings back memories of having a bad flu when you're 8 years old. You know, that's when you wake up in the middle of the night, in the middle of the forest, alone and cold, and you can feel a chill coming up your spine. That's kind of what it feels like. This pathetic 8-year-old with a bad flu and a fever, chills, sort of thing. That's what it feels like. And yeah, it's awful. Hey everyone, allow me to interrupt myself. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out, Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there, so just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which was a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Tamagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship, and you will see these items, new forging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book well, it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out.
Hey Les!
Gotta watch the whales!
Oh my gosh! This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
Can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients?
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor. Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Cannellan. It's on National Geographic. Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lestroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website. You can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. This is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning La Loche about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video.
waking up with a chill. It's just, it always makes you wonder what you're doing out here. Joe will be asking himself the same questions throughout the night. Why did I do this? What am I doing out here? But I can't make it easy for him. He has to go through this for real. Because real survival has never been about TV. Real survival is about making it through the night. It's about staying alive to survive another day.
And bear in mind that at this point, we're still kind of walking along an old abandoned road.
It's early morning. Sun hasn't quite risen yet. It'll be up soon, and that'll make a big difference for both of us. I can hear branches breaking, so I know that Joe's keeping his fire going. That would have been a lifesaver for him last night. I want to get us moved deeper into the bush. And I think best of all today, I'm going to hunt for grouse all the way along the trail. See if I can get us some dinner. I better go look on Joe.
I think today what I'll do now is start to give him some instruction, help him out a bit. What he doesn't know is that he'll be alone again tonight, but at least now he may be expecting it or be ready for it. Morning.
Good morning, Les.
Still got your fire going?
It went out a few times, but yeah, it's back.
Yeah. So?
It was cold. It was really cold.
Dropped down a bit,
Yeah.
didn't it? I'm gonna take today and now I'm gonna give you some help.
Okay.
So we'll have a much better night tonight.
The help I give him will be knowledge. I want him to see how I set up my camp, and I'm hoping he'll take note of everything except for the rain poncho. He can see that on another day. I need him to concentrate on his next move.
He's got a lot more padding than I had on my bed. He's right underneath a tree, so he could lean up against it. And his fire pit is much smaller, and it's right next to his bed. And there's running water nearby.
I had insulation between myself and the ground, so no coldness coming through the ground at all.
Yeah.
I still got chilled. I still had the chill
But
in
you
the
had,
middle of the night.
you had a lot more padding.
Yeah.
A much easier fire pit to make, too.
All right. Good.
And that's an interesting point that Joe makes, or a much easier fire pit to make as well. You need to build survival components when you're out there that are the least difficult, that are the easiest on your body, the easiest on your strength reserves and your calorie reserves. And that's surviving smart. That's the way to do it, is to do things that don't tax your energy.
By trail. As we walk, number one, the blazes that you make, you want to make them on the far side of the trees.
Okay.
Because we're the ones that might need it to get out. You turn around and you look back and you blazed all the other sides of the trees as you're going, because that's the easy thing, right? You walk along, you blaze a tree, you keep walking. That's great for coming in. But if you want to come back out, there's nothing to look at. This is a thick forest, and we're far from roads. We're as out there as anyone can be in a real survival situation. So if things go wrong at all, they'll go horribly wrong.
The idea here was that I found a spot in Temagami, and the original goal, by the way, I actually wanted to walk us across to my actual own cabin in Temagami. And I looked at the topography, I looked at where I thought, okay, we should be able to get across to there. And that's the journey we're on. We're trying to go from the highway onto a dirt road, from the dirt road straight across land. And hopefully, and I think it was, if memory serves, it's like 7.5 miles through the bush. That should be doable. Should be.
So I need Joe to concentrate, to put forth the effort at relying upon himself and effecting true survival. Yet in spite of his constant willingness to do whatever it takes, I noticed his efforts at making a trail fall off within the first hour of bushwhacking.
Yeah, and that was, this is an interesting thing. It's the beginning of something with Joe. Something I discovered, I'll get to it later because it's really an important point. but something I discovered about myself and my survival experience, and then having Joe out there and always causing me to remember, oh, that's right, he would never have done this. So he wouldn't know that this is happening to his mind and his body. And it really comes out later.
I highly recommend eating snow. Keep your body temperature cooled down.
Without proper trail marking, neither one of us could likely find our way out easily if we get into real trouble. But I'll push us onward.
These leaves here?
Yeah.
Do you have a pocket?
I do.
Yeah, gather a bunch of this up. This is called Labrador tea.
Okay.
It's gonna make a nice drink later on. It's a trail. And so it's a tough decision. You come, it's like, wow, oh my gosh, we found a trail, we're saved.
Yeah.
But which way do you go and how far does it go? Some of these trails can go for miles and then peter out into nothing. Other times, they could be a half a mile from a road. In this case, I want to keep us going due east. So we're actually going to ignore this trail. If you're okay and you're comfortable and you're traveling right and you know what you're doing, always trust your compass.
Yeah.
You get yourself in a lot of trouble when you diverge. In fact, people die because they diverge. Joe and I are just getting beat here by swamps. At every couple of 100 yards, we end up hitting another swamp. This is a big one.
This became a big problem for us. I miscalculated on the amount of snow melt and swamp land that would be impassable. And I had not counted on that. I looked at topography, I thought, we'll be able to cut across land. Boy, the amount of times I said that just by looking at a map, and then I get out there, it's like, yeah, this is impossible. Lost track of.
It's really slowing us down. We're not getting far at all. It's all the spring melt.
Hour after hour pass with cold, wet snow on the ground and a blisteringly hot sun overhead as we sweat and work away our energy, burning up thousands of calories with each stumble and step forward.
We could try skirting the edge of it. I mean, it looks pretty wet over there. Try and stay a foot or two higher than the swamp. Okay, another swamp down. Hey, can you come back here? There's a grouse over there. And it's a spruce grouse too. Famous for not moving. Tend to walk right up to them.
Now, before I throw it, notice I'm using the axe. Just didn't have time. This is where it would have been good to have already had a throwing stick with me to be able to use. Didn't have time, so I'm going to throw the axe. Not the smartest thing to do. A, I could lose it. B, I could break it. And C, I'm not practiced with that particular axe in terms of its weight and all, and its balance and all of that. So throwing it's going to be very uncoordinated. Let's watch. Oh. Now I see by watching it, I was just like 6 inches underneath him. Boy, if that axe had been just 8 inches higher, I would have got him. It's the first time I kind of watched it like this, actually. Bummer.
Wow, that's perfect, eh? Just sitting right there like that. All right. Next time. Because the time of the day, the sun's moved around. So now what I'm doing is, instead of putting the sun directly in front of me and my forehead walking east, I'm keeping it on like this part of my temple, right? Because it's moved. So I keep it over there now, but I'm going that way, and that keeps me still going relatively east, relatively on a street. That keeps me going on. I need some food.
I can only hope that Joe is paying attention to the little tricks and techniques that I'm showing him along the way.
some salvation. Joseph and I have been pushing for hours and hours. There's a trail here. Problem is whether or not it goes where we need it to go, or if we have to keep walking straight.
Joe and I have pushed hard for many hours, and I don't really know yet how far we've made it. As much as I'm being hard on him, I need to give him a boost and get his spirits up.
That was something I began to notice with Joe, as I would notice with anybody in a situation like this. Going without food like this and working this hard and being, really not being in the know of what's going on, like, or what you should be doing, because again, I needed to allow him to experience that, taxes you emotionally and physically in an insane, just in an immense amount of ways. Can't speak right now. And I'm full of food. So, but what I forgot that it would also do is it would play on his emotions. And it just starts to creep in again and again. I could see him getting a little bit bummed out. I think bursting his bubble a bit that, yeah, this isn't going to be a camping trip with Survivorman. This is what you signed up for.
Since you didn't pick any food on the table,
Oh my God.
I did. We can ration it out. We can take half and half and eat it all up now.
I think I forgot to say that too, was I also allowed myself to only pick 2 items from the table. And for whatever reason, we didn't decide to show it in the edit. It might have been a little prosaic, but in any event, yeah, I picked 2 things. And one of them was food.
Now, I'm good with either.
I would say ration it out.
You want to ration it out? I think you should ration. I think you should try rationing.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish mine, which is a little
You're going to
crazy.
just wolf it.
I'm going to wolf it. Not
Okay.
because I think that's the right thing to do. It's an interesting dynamic for me to have finished my food and you to be rationing your food. You know what's going to happen is each day you look forward to that one little bite. It's really incredible. And I won't have that.
But what I will have is that load of calories in my body early in this game. And that's what I was going for. But, which is not to say that Joe did the wrong thing there. There was no right or wrong in whether you rationed the food or whether you ate it. Often I actually say rationing is better.
Decided to push forward past the little trail, following a line due east to a destination at a distant lake that I saw on a map. But we're forced to give that up, as I can tell we're getting nowhere near. In fact, this whole day feels like crawling through the thick bush. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and we're getting soaked to the skin from all the spring melt. Frustration and survival don't go together well, and we're exhausting ourselves just trying to make some headway in what feels like an impossible trajectory.
This is a sight for sore eyes. To see this in front of me and know that I can follow this one, magic.
Ah,
We're gonna
the train tracks. Yeah. I think I had been expecting to cross these train tracks like in the morning, like many, many hours before this. And I don't recall if seeing these train tracks meant I knew where we were with comparison to the cabin I was trying to hike us to or not. I don't recall, but I have a feeling that I did know. It's like, oh my God, it's like, this is the train tracks. We're only at the tracks now. Whew, we're never gonna make it to the cabin. I think I remember feeling that and thinking it.
drop our packs and just do a little reconnaissance mission and check this out.
Now, the beauty of being able to walk freely now and seeing a man-made structure, railroad tracks, that's a huge psychological boost.
Thank God that Les brought some food and gave me a little snack. I'm gonna ration that for however long it takes to get out. Never underestimate the power of Les Stroud. I was bumbling around like a doofus the last hour. I was so exhausted and so tired. I thought it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was 12:45. We got a lot to learn about survival.
And that's, you know, it's not that I got nothing special going on here. I got years of experience, of course, but I did find over the years that my body became very accustomed to survival modes. It knew after a while. I mean, after a while, after a bunch of years or a few years, I didn't even lose weight anymore on survival outings. So my body knew. It's like, oh, you're doing this again, are you? Okay, fine. I'm going to keep the calories. It was crazy. So I understood how to deal with my own lethargy. The very first one I ever shot, the pilot, you should go watch the pilot version, again, on this YouTube channel. I was exhausted every day, hard to do anything. And that carried on into the next pilot and then season 1. But by the time I got into season 2, season 3, I was a rock star out there. I knew, my body just knew. It's like, okay, you're going without food and you're pushing hard through the bush. We know what to do. When I say we, I mean all the components inside me. So I had to remember that Joe didn't have that experience. And so he was feeling it. He was feeling it hard, and so would you, so would anybody without the experience of having done a lot of survival expeditions.
Once again, I sprung it on Joe that he must survive the night alone. He indeed does have a lot to learn, and I can't lead him by the hand. I can only be an example.
It took Joe and I 7 hours to go 1 mile.
Right, that was what I remember from this. 7 hours to go 1 mile. 7 hours, 1 mile through the woods. That was demoralizing. I have been in some pretty tough situations, adventure racing, for example, pushing through the bush. And I think that was the slowest I've ever been able to traverse through a wilderness area ever in my life, was 7 hours to make it 1 mile.
That's how thick that bush was. You know, what's interesting is, in all my years of survival, I've broken into cottages, broken into cabins, houses, used little shacks, little survival huts, different things like that, but yet I have never survived alongside of railroad tracks, so that's what we'll do. It's a first for everything. Sure, we could just push hard and walk out of here, but then that's not survival. That was a heck of a day. I better go check on him.
So I'm going to stop here and tell you a little story. It's a weird one, but all you Bigfoot nuts, pay attention. This was a very strange thing. And I can't remember if this was before I shot the Bigfoot series or after, if it was part of why I was interested in shooting the series and interested in the phenomenon and so on. But I want to go back to our first night. On that first night, I built that bed and had my little fire there and everything, and had set up and put the poncho up and everything. While I'm laying there, in the stillness of zero wind completely, I remember it happened to be like 11 o'clock at night. And I don't know why I remember that, because I never wear a watch. So maybe I saw it on the camera. About 50 feet away from me, boom, boom, a big, huge tree just boom comes down. Now it could have just rotted in that moment and came down. I remember feeling like something was watching me that whole night. And so that happened. Nothing happened with Joe, but that happened with me on the night before this night. Now this night, it gets crazy.
Oh, I smell fire. That's a good sign. Well, I think we got beat up pretty good today, so let's stop. Let's work on getting some food tomorrow, and then we can head out the following day after that. I'll leave you to the night. I'm going to go back and get my firewood, get all that stuff. All right?
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
So Les has once again left me to my own devices. Originally I thought I'd be hanging out with Les at the campfire while he plays harmonica, but I've been thrown into making my own shelters, having to learn firsthand how to do this. I have never camped alone by myself, even with a tent. So here I am, listening to his advice and get some more bedding.
I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought he would be much further along. After his experience last night, I thought he'd have a whole big bed of boughs and a big pile of firewood, and he doesn't.
It's hard to hold back and not fix Joe's mistakes for him. But this is about himself and the wilderness. I don't want to be a part of the equation just yet.
Okay, it's finally cooled down enough.
I knew all along that I was going to survive right alongside him the next night. So I was bringing relief, and you can see there's sort of little increments of relief along the way while I'm instructing him. But I still had to have him experiencing it for real.
Tea. That's awesome. I'm actually gonna go to bed soon while it's still light out. So if I could sleep maybe from 8 to 10 or 8 to 11, that'd be wonderful. And I could just stay up the rest of the night and watch the fire and hang out.
It's actually not a bad thought, you know. I've often said, like, sleep when you can, right? And sometimes you can sleep much better in the middle of the day than you can at night. So he's actually, he's deducing well here. He's saying, yeah, if I could sleep from 8 till 11 or so, get 3 hours in, you know, that's going to be better than getting no sleep in all through the night. And he's not wrong.
Again, I take for granted my own knowledge of how to manage my energy in a survival situation. The key is to be as active as possible during the daylight, storing up lots of firewood and securing shelter so that your body is tired and will allow you to sleep throughout the night. Joe's doing the opposite.
And that's the other way of looking at it.
Leaving him with scant firewood and little protection from the cold ground.
I'm just trying to bring some warmth back into my toes. Only possible way to stay warm, I'm finding, is to use the hot rocks. I hope Joe is thinking to do that.
I haven't slept because I've got to keep this fire going. And every time I've fallen asleep for like 10 minutes, the fire goes out. Trying to decide whether or not to make myself throw up or not. Because that Labrador tea or spruce didn't react well. It's just like sitting in my throat like heartburn. I don't want to throw up, but it might be good for me.
Now, I would say he's wrong in that situation. People are often just not comfortable with unfamiliar food. It's just tea. It's just herbal tea. That's all it is. I'm not denying that he had heartburn. But the fact that it's a wild tea and it's not in a package from the store freaks people out. And I've seen it time and time and time again. And it really shouldn't. I mean, the only difference between the wild food like that and, I don't know, broccoli is it's got a label on it or something. It's packaged up for the store. So he should have been fine. But I can understand why he'd be nervous because he's ingested a tea that he's just not familiar with. And he wasn't necessarily as Tom Waits would say, a pioneer of the palate, certainly when it comes to wild foods. So don't blame him for feeling this way, but it's unnecessary.
It's gonna be a night without sleep again.
Joe is getting almost no sleep, and exhaustion is beginning to
So let's... Oh, wait a minute. Is this the next morning? Hang on, let's watch.
overtake him. He's not making enough of a change in his survival actions to really help himself. So I'll take the next step, and we can begin to survive together.
Howdy.
Okay, so this is the next day. So what happened that night? By the way, this was after I'd filmed the Bigfoot series. So I was my antenna was out quite a bit for any kinds of experiences. And so this night, I slept like a baby. I didn't hear a thing. But Joe tells me in the morning that he had trees coming down around him throughout the night. He said at least 10 or 12 trees came down throughout the night. There was no wind, not a speck of wind. Moose don't go around pushing trees down. Neither do bears. But it's one of the anecdotally referenced attributes of the phenomenon known as Sasquatch is the tree pushing down. And Joe said he couldn't, that was the other reason why he couldn't sleep. was something was out there, something was around him, and it was pushing trees down. Pretty freaky. And I got no explanation for it.
Buddy. Oh, okay. Got your own little tent here.
Actually, that's my rain poncho.
Oh, okay.
But come up, take a look. I mean, that's the obvious difference.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what do you notice?
Your fire pit's a lot different than yesterday's. It's like deeper and sunken in, and then you have a ton of firewood here.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we're going to fix tonight is your fires are still really quite small.
Okay.
And my bed is also like probably 6 times bigger than yours. Well, we're going to fix this tonight for you.
Okay.
Tonight we're going to...
I don't have a rain poncho, though.
You don't, but let's take a look over here.
Though I haven't needed to use too much just yet, I've laid out all of the contents of the survival kit. And I'll give Joe another chance, picking some more items to help him survive.
No, I forgot that I did this. And it's kind of fun and exciting for me that I think I must have thought about it on the spot. You know what? Let's see if Joe wants to come and take some of this stuff. So this is the survival kit that I designed with Camillus. I designed 2, a group one and a solo one. I think best survival kits out there. Of course, I'm biased, but everybody knows this. I always say, in fact, go watch the video where I talk about survival kits. You can see it on this YouTube channel. I lay it out, and the reality is that off-the-shelf, store-bought survival kits suck. They're always bad. Why? Because they can't make them expensive, so they have cheap stuff in them. All this crappy stuff. So Camillus and I put this together. Now, they hated working with me on this because this stuff ended up costing, it was like $100 for the survival kit. It's like, well, yeah, but it's like a first aid kit. Do you want crappy items in your first aid kit that don't work? No. So a survival kit is like a first aid kit. That's the way you must look at it. Make your own. Put your own stuff together, the best quality possible. I never put you got to put a knife in the survival kit, Les. Was Camillus arguing with me, right? No, you can't. Because the only knife you can afford to put in a survival kit is going to be a crappy little knife. And someone should have a real knife on their belt, a strong knife, a sturdy knife. Not a crappy little knife inside some crappy little survival kit. So I took a lot of time building these kits, and I've got maybe about 50 of each kit left. They're literally downstairs on a shelf right now. Someday I'll do something with them, maybe auction them off for charity or something like that. But I got to say to you, and yes, of course I'm ridiculously biased, but put them up against any survival kit that blows the doors off any other survival kit that's ever been tried to be put together, except for the one you make yourself. So you can see what's in this, and I think that's why I go, it's like, okay, you don't have a tarp, Joe, but come and look at what's in my little survival kit here, and I know that there's a tarp. So I know that was a rant, but I take survival kits seriously.
Take a look at these items. Tell me what 2 items from this pile you would now take after your experience.
Right.
That's kind of a great question when you think about it. It's like, okay, 2 nights out here. Now, how would you pick? Completely different than what people would normally pick on their first shot at it.
I would have taken my waterproof matches.
The matches in your water bottle. Those are 2 really good choices.
For me, always first, matches or lighter. Now, if I knew I was going long term, I would take a flint striker because I know how to use it, and it would last years.
Yeah.
Whereas matches and lighters, they run out. The second item would be a shelter overhead. Well, for today, what I'm going to do is, first of all, here, the garbage bag's now yours.
Okay.
You're going to have a roof tonight with that.
All
I'll
right.
show you how to use it, how to get it set up, and then I'll give you a bit of a reflective roof.
Cool.
And
Matches.
matches.
Hallelujah.
The other thing that we have in this kit is fishing gear.
All right.
Okay? You want to give it a shot?
Sure, I'll give it a shot.
There's no rod or reel, but I can show Joe how to make one out of some garbage I spotted floating on the lake nearby. The prospect of food can be a great motivator.
And this is going to be your fishing rod.
Never tried that before.
Clearly you're not watching enough Survivorman shows. So tie the fishing line right around.
Just for clarity, we're still traveling along the railroad tracks.
And here, wind all the rest around. We'll have our hook, whatever jig on the end, and you take it like this, get some out. Lands, take the line like that, don't worry about the bottle, and I start playing it back.
Okay. Oh.
All right, time to make a throwing stick, because I keep hearing grouse, and this looks like it might be a good throwing stick. It's a live tree, it's hardwood, and it's got a nice bend in it.
You know, this episode doesn't get mentioned a lot within the canon of Survivorman shows, but I actually think this is one of the best episodes that I ever shot, just because I was kind of, you know, jazzed to be working with Joe and showing him all this stuff. I had somebody with me, which made it, frankly, easy for me. I got company. Company's everything. And we can touch on all these skills that otherwise I might even take for granted, but not for Joe. And I had someone else filming, which just provided so much more content for Barry, the editor, to work with. So this is actually, I think, watching this now after having done so many director's commentaries, this is one of my favorites.
Ooh, that's got some weight to it. Let's go shorten that up a bit, smooth it out a bit, and I got a ready-made club for hopefully catching some dinner.
Okay. I see something, but I don't know if it's a grouse or not. Oh, it's a red squirrel. One of the things about looking for grouse is that they tend to go back to the same log to sit and call their mates over and over again. So if you can find that log, you can actually hide there, sit and wait it out, because sooner or later, even after you've initially scared them, they'll come back. All right, I'm gonna do one more. Let's sort of circle around here, I know.
And I should say, to find that log, you look for their feces. You look for droppings, so spruce droppings, and you'll see, because there'll be quite a pile of them just in behind where they sit on that log.
It's up here somewhere, I can hear it.
Joe also asked for the bandana from the survival kit, one small item that can make a big difference for him, since he badly burned his head in the sun during the bushwhacking.
So I understand now what Les talks about on the show all the time. My mental faculties are starting to break down. I haven't been sleeping much. I'm hungry. My body is sore. If I were on my own, no way I would make it.
I'm not finding my grouse, and I'm kind of getting way off base here. I can't even see the lake anymore, so. Ow!
I did ask Joe to make sure that he gave reflections to the camera all the time, that he talked about how he was feeling as much as possible, so we could share those moments with you.
I know I'll laugh about this later, but I just got jammed hard with a stick that was sticking upright right into the nether regions, right into the boys.
I forgot about this.
Oh my gosh.
That's something you want to forget about.
After an unsuccessful hunt, and with no luck fishing either, it's time to move on. This time, we'll follow the tracks. Something I've never...
I think what I must have done is, when we came out eventually, I must have said, probably to Max Atwood, hey, take the drone and go down and drone the tracks, because we spent a lot of time on the tracks and we're going to need these overhead shots. And he would have gone to where the tracks on the road meet and then just shoot the drone down the tracks to get this footage. Probably what happened.
Never done before in a survival situation.
Well, I propose that we start to make tracks. Get to our next location.
Sure. All set?
Yep.
We'll try fishing at every lake and river we pass, gathering any advantages we see as we trek along, including any helpful garbage, always with each discovery along the way attempting to make things easier for survival. Sticking to the tracks gives us the psychological boost of familiar surroundings, but offers little in terms of survival. In the end, they're nothing more than big hunks of steel on gravel. Hardly the advantage I'm looking for, but they do make travel 100% easier. And after yesterday's impossible bushwhacking experience, we'll take anything we can get.
I remember this was a decision I made in that moment. I was like, we're not going to make it to my cabin. I didn't tell Joe any of this, that we were trying, I probably told him at the end, but that we were trying to make it to this little cabin in the woods. And I just probably realized we're only at the train tracks. There's no way we're going to make it all the way to the cabin now. I'm thinking this in my mind probably, right? And that became a change of mind of what to do, which of course is also a good survival method. You know, is to say, okay, hey, we got to make a proactive decision here and do something differently. And that I probably would have made that decision myself, but that's what I made. It was just, that was the one I made. Just like, all right, you know what? Let's stick to the tracks and just see how long it does take us to get to an actual road where we can get out of here.
All right, so for the last, unfortunately, about half an hour to 45 minutes, Joe and I have been stumped by where to set up camp for the night. And now, of course, we got rain coming in.
Joe is incredibly willing to push forward, always. His will to survive is strong, but his body and mind are giving him the most trouble. I can tell as I watch him work that he's foggy. He's not concentrating. He often stumbles as he gathers supplies in the bush, and for every 50 branches I might grab, he grabs 10.
I'm not being hard on him. This was a very interesting phenomenon to watch. This particular night, the amount of lethargy in Joe was off the charts. You see him sitting there working with the rope. He spent like more than an hour just sitting there with that rope until, well, what ended up happening was eventually I had to start kind of bossing him around and telling him, okay, do this for me, go do that, go pick up this. And when I would ask him to get firewood, he would literally come back with one stick. So I knew I was, in essence, I was kind of losing him. And I did have to kind of say, okay, I need to look out for this guy now.
I can only push him so hard, as I want him to finish this out feeling successful. I don't need to break him. I just need him to experience true survival for what it really is. Brutally difficult, uncomfortable, just plain hard. Survival is not camping, and it never will be.
You want to do the honors, or you want me to?
I'd love to.
All right. All yours.
I know what it feels like to be a student and go like, oh, good, finally, to know that you're sleeping just feet away from the instructor kind of thing. And so I knew this would certainly make him feel better. But on the other hand, he was exhausted. And so I don't know if he got to enjoy this part of the camaraderie finally or not, because he was beaten. He was beaten up pretty good.
Well, Joe and I settle in. We pretty much have similar circumstances to the last couple of nights in terms of the weather. It's clear, it's still, it's likely to get chilly again. I don't really know. But the fact that we're both here together, we can keep the fire going. Unfortunate that we had no luck with fishing. Unfortunate that we had no luck with hunting. It wasn't for lack of effort, but both of us are getting to that point now where you go this many days without food, and you start to stumble a bit, feel a little bit drunk. I know Joe was definitely feeling a bit stumbly walking around when we were trying to get all of this organized. And we're just gonna wait out the night, hopefully sleep out the night. Apparently Joe's warm enough to sleep tonight.
Honestly, that's the best sound an instructor could hope to hear. It felt, it's like I thought, I don't care if I don't sleep all night. And I can't sleep with a snorer, by the way. But Joe's sleeping. He's out, deep sleeping. That's not REM sleep there. He's gone. And that is music to this instructor's ears. I remember thinking, oh, thank goodness. And I didn't, at that point, I was like, I don't want to do anything to wake him up.
It was a challenge. It was a big challenge. Physically, mentally, I hated it at points. Like, I really didn't want to be where I was at certain times, but I'm really grateful. It was a remarkable and terrifying experience. Don't take less lightly. Like, I thought I prepared for this, but no, not at all. I had no clue what the stuff is like that he does. Like, that's the real deal. It's no joke.
When you sign up for survival with me, you sign up for the real thing. There's no crew to joke around with, no bed to sleep in after the filming is done, nowhere to go. So you have to survive. If you want to know what survival is like, then removing yourself from your comfort zone is the only way. It's the way of survival.
I just noticed a credit faux pas. Isn't that funny, eh? After all these years. And the credits, when they were going by there, it said special thanks, and it was supposed to say Joe McConnell. It said willing participant. So I don't know why it says that. Maybe someone put it in there going, oh, we'll get his name later or something. You know, Barry may have said that, but oh well. So there you go, guys. That is the fan episode. And I've got the DVD over there from the 20th anniversary collection ready to go for the next director's commentary, which I'm probably going to do tomorrow night. And I do have to knock it off tomorrow night because, and maybe also again on Tuesday night, I'll do another one. And that'll be the night before my colonoscopy. So much fun. I'm so looking forward to that. It's been 10 years. It's time. So join me, won't you, on that director's commentary where I'll hang out here. We'll watch the show together, but I might have to get up often and leave the room because I will be preparing for my colonoscopy. Thanks, guys. See you soon.